There's so many good questions about things that I don't think w- when I'm just a normal everyday Christian before I found the school of Robert Murphy. There's so many aspects of the world that I viewed as economics as being either it's the stock market or it's building your budget. And so
Mm.
there are things like the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve money and fiat money. And I've always heard different people talk about how gold is this really good thing to have, and we should always return back to the gold standard. But there's so many good things that you talk about, that I don't want to just pepper you with questions that are important, but that people should go. Is there any one of those items that you feel that people should know the most about, to either inform their lives or inform kind of how they should look at uh, economic principles within their country?
Oh, okay. I don't know if this is going to sound goofy or not, but I think there is something. So I think a biblical Christian should be aware of the history of the classical gold standard and understand that money, was not created by the state, and that the pieces of paper that the government prints right now, or even electronic tickets, as it were, that's not what money was originally. That the government came in and sort of, pushed out the market's provision and gradually took it over, and then even severed the link to the precious metals, so that we have what's now called state-issued fiat money. I think there is a biblical element there, and among other things, the fact that we print presidents and stuff on there. Jesus saying, whose picture is this on the money? I think there's that element as well, the narcissism and deification of these mere men. But I do think there's something there about, like, it used to be called sound money. Mises refers to that. And I think there's something there, like, honest money. Some people might use that phrase. And I think there is something there about, that the money is real and honest. And I know modern economists hearing, especially if they're secular, would roll their eyes and, oh, you fuddy-duddy, with your moralizing. But I really do think there's something there, that the money, when it's produced in a market, is honest and sound, and the government, coming in, or I should say, I want to say the state, because, some people use the term government pretty broadly, could include the family and the church. But this, the political course of state coming in and monopolizing that, and then just running the printing press. I mean, besides the fact that they use it to pay for wars and locking people up and other things that I think are pretty unchristian, but just the nature of what they're doing, like that they're hijack. I mean, I think it's institutionalized theft, among other, it's counterfeiting in a certain sense. And so anyway, I think, and I think it's no surprise that a lot of people I know who are really, who track with that line of thinking in terms of they're really against central banking. And so they also happen to be Bible believing Christians. So there is that overlap. And so the extent that some of your listeners are Christian, but yet they've never really looked into this stuff, I would encourage them to read up on, you could get it in my book Choice, for examples, where, it'll spell it out. But
Yeah.
That's something that's relatively new to me. But in other words, when I was into Mises and Austrian economics when I was younger, I wasn't that big on, the commodity money either way. That didn't mean much to me. And I'm saying the older I get, and quote, the wiser I get, hopefully, the more I see, like, wow, in terms of the stuff that the state has done, like, yeah, the military draft is horrible, and, the fugitive slave law, and that's horrible. But in terms of just taking over, or, taking over that's a good way of putting it. I think a lot of Christians understand the horror of the state taking over the school system. And I'm saying, yeah, and the state took over money production too, and that's
Yeah.
really bad also.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of the articles that I really want to write for my blog. I think we get our political viewpoint too much, and I'm only speaking from the points of view that I interact with the most. Is Christians tend to say, I can't vote for the Democrats because all they want to do is kill babies, but then they'll take their economic point of view, not from their Christian worldview, but from being a Republican or whatever it might be. And so
Mm.
that's one of the things that I want to encourage people on this podcast is bringing everything under the central authority of Christ and saying, not not what agrees with my Christian worldview, but what from my Christian worldview can I derive, principles from, investment, doing business, like, just God telling us to have even scales, and that's not just even scales with other Christians or in money. It's hold them to a standard that you have balance and that you have these even scales and that you don't have your certain idea of, well, this is evil because it's killing babies and that goes against God's will. But then we like it when this other group is in power because they're really ragging on those social justice. Is communism bad? It's because it has the improper view of man as being morally good or neutral, and that through force sharing should be accomplished. And so, I not that I want to get too political here, although I have my own ideas, but
Well, yeah, just
that's
if
one
I
of the
can
reasons why I wanted to have
follow up
you
on
on.
that.
Yeah, please.
So
Please.
that's a good way of putting it, that for those of your listeners who are, I really like the U.S. Constitution, that kind of stuff. Go look at what it does when it talks about money. I think it's like Congress shall have the authority to, I think, coin and regulate. Maybe it says money, something like it. Sort of says coin money. And so people think, I think nowadays, oh yeah, so that's why they have the Federal Reserve and they can. And no, back when they wrote those words, I mean, to them, money was gold and silver, and so it had to do with the, ensuring fair weights and measures, like you were saying, the biblical principle of not defrauding the people that you're doing business with. And so the point of them coining the money was not that the government was allowed to just take a piece of paper and declare it to be money. It was to, stamp it so everybody could recognize, okay, yeah, this is an ounce of gold. That was the purpose.
Right.